the greatest contribution that Living Color has is bringing rock back to its roots in terms of some of the blues stuff that you don't often hear on pop radio. Yet it's making it modern in terms of giving it that harder, hard rock edge. It's also allowing, especially blacks, African Americans who don't listen to rock normally, to hear a band which is influenced by their elders, also has an influence on contemporary music.
We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller!
We are totally booked.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock. Conversations with authors, musicians, and insiders revealing the stories behind classic rock's greatest songs, albums, and artists. And if you enjoy the show, you want to support it, you can sign up for the Booked on Rock Backstage Pass for just $5 a month. Get every episode commercial free and before everyone else. Just use the link in the show notes or visit bookedonrock.com. Now on to the show. Living Color was more than a groundbreaking rock band. They challenged the industry's narrow definitions while confronting racism, politics, identity, and power through fearless genre-defying music. Today, I'm joined by author Preston Frazier to discuss his new book, Shade of Living Color, which traces the band's journey from New York clubs to Grammy-winning success, reinvention, and an enduring place in modern rock history. Welcome back to the show, Preston.
Eric, it's great to be here. It's good to see you again.
I love Living Color. So excited to talk about this band. You are rocking the Living Color shirt. When did you become a fan?
Oh, wow. So I think I mentioned in the book that I first saw them when they were opening for the Rolling Stones. I think it was Steel Wheels Tour or something like that in the late 80s, early 90s. And of course, I heard all the big hits. So that's really when I became a fan. But after seeing them on stage at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., I thought, wow, this is fantastic. They were so dynamic and the music was great.
Yeah. And we'll get to that connection with the Stones more than just they opened for the Stones. We'll get to that. And they started as a three-piece, Vernon Reid on guitar and vocals. You described the incarnation as lean, insistent, and searching. What was Vernon searching for musically before Corey Glover completed the band's identity?
That's a good question. I think Vernon has always been searching for something new, for something at the next level, for something different. And he had a pretty good career before Living Color. He had worked with a number of people, including John Zorn. He had worked later with Bill Frisell, doing a really wonderful duet album with him. And he had formulated and founded the Black Rock Coalition in New York with journalist Greg Tate, who was an amazing person and also amazing musician. So Vernon has always been striving to progress, and he was hearing a sound in his head that he wasn't getting from his own music as a solo artist or as a sideman. So that's when he decided, hey, I want to form a band. I want to form it with some New Yorkers who are friends of mine. And that's really the genesis of the three-man Living Color.
And you write that he believed black musicians could claim every inch of the rock territory they had been written out of. How much of Living Color's formation was a musical mission and how much was a cultural one?
Wow. I would say, Eric, it was probably a combination of both, an equal mix of both. And I don't think you can separate the music from the culture with Living Color. It is an integral part of who they are. And maybe it's an integral part of what rock music is, because rock music is really based on blues. It's based on R&B. And a lot of the early rock pioneers, some which have been forgotten, are actually African-American or Black. So I think that goes hand in hand.
The lineup shifted several times before Vernon, Corey Glover, Muzz, Skillings, and Will Calhoun came together in 1986. What did each member contribute that finally transformed Vernon's concept into a complete band?
I think Corey's contributions are pretty obvious. He had an amazing voice that can really handle the hard rock sound that Vernon wanted, that Vernon wasn't as good as a lead singer, but also has a R&B flair, soulful flair, which you hear not only on all the Living Color albums, but on Corey's solo work and the band work that he does outside of Living Color. So that was integral. Um, Will Calhoun is a phenomenon. He is a jazz drummer who could play heavy. He has a great sense of time as as a rock drummer. He has a great feel as a rock drummer, and that double bass sound that he gets is pretty amazing. So he can play anything, and he's played everything. World music. He's doing jazz right now. He is just a phenomenon. And then Muzz Skilling is probably the biggest mystery to me of the band. Of course, he did the first two albums, and he's featured some of the compilations. Muzz is a fantastic bass player, very funky. He can do the straight ahead James Jamerson type stuff, and he can do the more experimental stuff. So I think that combination of those four really create a chemistry which is undeniable.
Talk about the Black Rock Coalition. How important was it not only to Living Color's development, but to challenging the music industry's narrow ideas about what Black artists were supposed to sound like?
Yeah, I think that was really the purpose, Eric, that Vernon and Greg Tate wanted to create something which not only brought some notice of Black rock musicians, but also pushed the boundaries forward of rock music. And I think that was something that was part of their initial plan. It's something which they're still doing in terms of bringing this music to light. The band, what are they called? Burnt Sugar, the orchestrata chamber, I think it's called Burnt Sugar, out of New York, is something that Greg Tate and Vernon had co-created together and is still going. And that is a combination of a lot of musicians playing improvised rock, jazz, and soul. So they really wanted to, at the time, the Black Rock Coalition, move Black music forward and continue to have an avenue for rock music, for funk and soul, and kind of mesh those all together. And even today, with the groups which fall under that umbrella of the Black Rock Coalition, they're still doing that.
They were so huge on MTV when that album came out. And I think back to early 80s when MTV did not play any Black artists. So you can imagine the struggle they would have had that far back, but it was even a struggle in the late 80s. It just wasn't accepted.
Yeah, I mean, I've had friends who told me that Black people didn't play rock, and why was I interested in rock, and why did I write rock books? And it's well, I mean, if you do your research, it's pretty obvious that Black people have had an impact on American music. And if you look at some of the larger rock artists, I mean, the Rolling Stones, that is blues.
Sure.
That is Chicago blues.
Rooted
Even Guns
in
N'
the blues.
Roses, it's rooted in the blues. It's all there. So it's just kind of Living Color was reclaiming what was ancestrally theirs, quite frankly.
Let's talk about Mick Jagger now. Those shows at the CBGB, you described those early shows as a crucible, and Mick attended one show in 1987. You write that Living Color played as though the walls might crumble. What did Mick recognize in the band, and how did he help them without attempting to reshape or control them either?
Yeah, that's exactly. He didn't really try to mold them into something they weren't. And he saw the urgency that the band had, the musicianship to Mick, I think to the people in attendance at CBGBs was kind of obvious. Of course, you have one of the best guitarists out there at the time, is still one of the best guitarists around, Vernon Reid, but you had a rhythm section which could play in the pocket, yet was extremely funky. And you had a singer who performed without a net. Corey was so dynamic and is so dynamic now that chemistry, that fire together really worked on stage. I think one of the questions that Mick may have had, and maybe any A&R man who saw the band at that time, was, can they produce the same kind of passion in the studio, but knowing that the studio requires some discipline? You have to get take after take. You have to get it down on tape. It has to be consistent. Could they do that? And with Reid and Calhoun's background in studio work, especially, they didn't have a doubt about that, and they were able to produce that first album really well. And of course, Mick produced two of the songs on the album.
Right. And he plays harmonica on Broken Hearts,
Broken Hearts, right?
which is a phenomenal. That whole album from start to finish is absolutely perfect. It really is. Let's get into that one now. 1988 is when Vivid came out, and it arrived during an era dominated by hair metal, yet Cult of Personality became a major MTV and radio hit without resembling much else in the mainstream. Why was that song able to break through?
Cult of Personality lyrically is so extremely strong. It's still relevant today in terms of what we're going through here in America. So you had the great lyric, you had a great video, which, I mean, you can't discount the fact that the video had an impact on the song selling as much as it did. And you had an unbelievable, ferocious guitar hook by Vernon Reid. And then you had this band just slamming behind them. I mean, Muzz and Calhoun were just slamming it, but it was disciplined. So you had all the elements you need for a great song, and it's a great way to kick off an album. I think one of the keys to Vivid, though, is that even though you have an outside producer, Mick Jagger, for 2 tracks, there's consistency from start to finish of that album. And also you have that piece of touches of R&B, touches of rap there, as well as that hard rock edge.
It's about New York City. And basically it captures different sides of the city at that time, right?
It really does. And I mean, at that time, New York City was in a pretty sad state. You had crime, you had corruption in government, you had the city falling apart, but you also had, and which some of which you have now, the pride of New Yorkers and the thought that things could come back. And that, I think that shows throughout the album and throughout Living Colour's discography as well. There's a lot of their songs are love letters to New York City. Cult Personality is not necessarily love letters to New York City, but it is a message which is supported by fantastic playing. And you mentioned the riff. Yeah, the riff is great. Then you get a balls to the wall solo, which is incredible.
Oh, unbelievable. Glamour Boys, it's catchy, it's playful, but underneath that surface is a sharp critique of materialism and status. What exactly was Vernon observing and criticizing when he wrote it?
And Glamour Boys is interesting because it really is, like you mentioned, a song which decries status and posing, which was something which was very very, very prominent back then. Yeah, it's clever. It's actually funny. And it has got it's a song with another great hook. So the chorus is great. The shout "I'm fierce" is just fantastic. So I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in the riffs in the excellent rhythm section that you sometimes don't hear the lyric on first listen. The Glamour Boys is a perfect example of one you have to go back and say, wait a minute, there's something beyond the surface.
And that's why it ages so well. Because
yes, absolutely.
As a teenager, most teenagers are like, yeah, well, I just love how it sounds. And then you get old and you start to read into these things and you really start to understand the complexity and the layers that are involved with their music. The 89 Steel Wheels tour, you talked about that. That gave Living Colour extraordinary exposure, but it also brought them into the controversy surrounding Guns N' Roses and the song One in a Million. What actually happened between Vernon and Axl Rose, and how much of the supposed confrontation was manufactured by the press?
I don't know the story really well, quite frankly. And I think that most of it was manufactured by the press. And quite frankly, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing for either band. I mean, Guns N' Roses at the time was a pretty big band, or still a pretty big band, actually. But I think that controversy really helped Living Colour in that it showed their commitment to their identity. It showed their commitment to who they are in terms of being African American. And it showed that they weren't going to take crap from other bands.
He had a problem with the lyrics. The lyrics are really controversial. And in fact, I think they left it off of their box set, Guns N' Roses, if I remember correctly. 1990s Time's Up. They deliberately avoided making Vivid 2 with this album. How much pressure did they face from Epic Records to repeat the sound and the commercial success of that debut?
I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone from Epic. Well, what was Epic Records back then? I wonder what they thought the chances of that first album, Vivid, being a huge success. And I know they had Mick Jagger on two songs, which of course will give them some cachet. But I don't think they had huge expectations. And the album did really well in the charts. And of course, they got a Grammy. Time's Up. I don't think that the record company necessarily put pressure on Living Color as much as Living Color put pressure on Living Color, and that was reflected later with their with Muzz leaving. Um, Time's Up. I don't know if it's my favorite Living Color album. It's probably my second favorite Living Color album, but it is an album where, first of all, the band really had more cohesion and more unity in terms of the writing process. They had a feel for what kind of sound they wanted, and they were really buoyed by their success with Vivid. So I think that really helped them move forward, and they didn't feel the pressure as much as they did going into the third album.
Elvis is Dead, it's a great song. Little Richard appears on it. It's both humorous and historically significant. What statement was the band making about the way rock history celebrated Elvis, while often minimizing its Black originators?
That's a very good point. I mean, the purpose part of the song is to bring attention, and that's in Little Richard's rap, actually, about the impact that African Americans had on rock music, and they don't want to be forgotten. And that's why that you have that rap part there. You have that wonderful sax solo. I think it's a alto sax solo by Maceo Parker too. Another living legend, another rock living legend, another funk living legend on a song. So it kind of brings all that together in one song. People celebrating someone who had taken from African American music and move rock forward. But the purpose of the song is really for people not to forget where rock originated.
There are a lot of great songs on that album as well. Just going through the track listing on Time's Up here.
Yeah, there's no filler on Time's Up.
No. Time's Up, the opening track, is great. But History Lesson, Love Rears Its Ugly Head, Elvis is Dead, we mentioned. Type, I think, was the lead single.
Which is my favorite song on the album. Oh. Yes, fantastic.
Oh, the guitar tone on that. Let's see. Solace of You. Mm-hmm. Beautiful song. Preston Frazier is with us. He's the author of the brand new book, Shade of Living Color. So you write that the band's relentless workload eventually became a form of self-harm disguised as discipline. Vernon and Will later felt that a hiatus after Time's Up might have prevented what followed. At what point did their work ethic begin damaging their relationships?
Pretty much during the tour for Time's Up, it became a slog. And it was relentless touring. A lot of bands do when they're newer. They get out there on the road, they tour, then they're told they need to do another album, then they tour. And usually touring is not conducive to writing. There's a lot of pressure for the band to continue to produce and be successful. You had a Grammy win for the first album. You had a Grammy win for the second album. You had top 10 sales for the first album and top 30 sales for the second album. So that pressure to produce, to sell, to go on the road, and it was getting to them. And I think it got to Muzz a lot. I've never talked to Muzz about this, but I talked to Vernon very briefly. He didn't really go into any detail, but I think the pressure about producing constantly, being on the road, led to a division within the band, and Muzz said he just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, it was publicly attributed to creative differences, but you suggest that the reality involved the exhaustion, poor communication, the accumulated personal friction. What did they lose musically and personally when he left, Muzz?
They lost the continuality they had with the first two albums. Musically, they didn't lose anything. I mean, honestly, they didn't. Maybe Muzz was a good vocalist, was a good backing vocalist. He's probably a little bit better than Doug Wimbish, but Doug is a good vocalist too. But in terms of the bass playing, Doug is just he's phenomenal. He was in Mick Jagger's solo band when Mick went on the road with Simon Phillips as a drummer. He's done so many great side projects with rap and R&B artists. So musically, they didn't lose anything in terms of writing. By the third album, by Stain, they really became more and more more and more integrated as writers together, as opposed to really Vernon leading the process. So what they lost was the fact that they lost a founding member and what impact that has on any band's psyche. But beyond that, musically, they were pretty strong.
They were. Yeah. Doug Wimbish, by the way, is from Hartford, Connecticut, not far from where I live here. I've worked in Hartford for many years. And from what I understand, a really nice guy, just really good dude. And very musical, like you say, just all these different projects. And he brought a very different musical personality to Stain, which came out in 93. Heavier, darker, more industrial sound to that album. How did his arrival change both the music and the interpersonal chemistry of the band, or did it, or was it, as you say, it just they were just moving forward as they had initially planned already?
Stain is sonically different than Vivid or Time's Up. Now, is that because of the times? Is that because of the production was slightly different? I think Ron St. Germain co-produced the album with Living Color. Other also, Doug Wimbish is much more into electronics and effects and sequencing and sampling, kicking samples than Muzz was. So I think all that contributed to a different sound. It's a lot more industrial sounding to me than Stain is than Time's Up. I think that was also a product of the times, though.
I wonder if that's when I saw Living Color in New Haven, Connecticut, maybe 20 years ago now, but there was a lot of experimentation going on there, synthesizer and industrial sounds and a lot of jazz fusion stuff happening there. I mean, it really threw the crowd, those that weren't longtime fans, a little bit like, whoa, what's they thought it was just going to be standard song after song, the hits and all that, but there's a lot of experimentation there, which I loved. Was that Wimbish?
I think it's mostly Wimbish, but it's also, I mean, Vernon is a gear nut.
Right.
And I think a lot of great guitarists are. He has samples as well, but most of it's Wimbish, yeah. And there's also a 3-year gap between Stain and Time's Up. And the music industry has changed too, when you have a lot more industrial sounds coming out in the mid 90s.
Leave It Alone, Nothingness were the big singles from that. And it arrived after grunge shifted the rock world towards darker, less polished music. Why didn't Living Color benefit more commercially from a climate that seemingly should have welcomed that album?
Partly because of the gap. Typically, a record company wants you to produce album a year until you can't do it anymore. And they took a gap of 3 years, really, and that had an impact. Also, with the first album especially, it was a freshness, it was a newness, which was gone by the time you got to the third album. I think that the first two albums are stronger than Stain, but Stain's still a pretty strong darn album.
It is. How much of it was this them being lumped in with the 80s bands? It's the other thing.
Yeah, that's true. And
you get a new decade, and it's like out with the old, in with the new.
I mean, the fact is that Living Color is not, and they're not Steely Dan. They're not an A&R AOR album group. They're a hard rock group, but they are accomplished players at a time when accomplished players weren't particularly respected. So even though they were extremely hard and are still extremely hard, you may have some of that coming into play in terms of the interpretation of their music.
Nothingness one of the most melodic and atmospheric songs on an otherwise abrasive record. Will Calhoun wrote it. The lyrics describe someone gradually disappearing emotionally from master of pain to master of hiding. What kind of loss or isolation was he writing about?
I don't know. I've never talked to Will, actually. I haven't talked to him about this. And I think you hit on it. I mean, is it something going on with him personally? Is it an observation of where we are as a society? Because a lot of that is, but I don't know.
There's a sense of humor in there where I don't know what the instrument is like. Whoa, it's a little like whistle thing.
You know,
Nothing.
and Vernon was using guitar synthesizers too, a Roland guitar synthesizer as well. But Wimbish was doing most of the sound effects with his sampling and triggering. So
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
You describe Living Color's breakup not as a collapse, but as a dispersal of energy. What did the years apart reveal about each member that may have been obscured within that band? Because they all went on to do solo work, right?
And they did, and they all went on to do solo work, which was not like Living Color. I mean, I think I include a review of Vernon's first solo album after they stepped apart, which was 1996's Mistaken Identity. And of course, that has some great guitar parts in every song, but it's really a great use of samples on that album. It's a great use of raps on that album, a great use of humor on that album, which some of which you didn't hear on Living Color. And then Corey too did a solo album pretty much around that same time, which I also included a review of, which is much more melodic than what he had done with Living Color, and quite frankly, much more soulful. So he got to use his instrument, his voice a lot more. So it allowed all of them, Wimbish and Calhoun, also to do things they would not normally do in Living Color. You had with Will Calhoun the world music, the jazz that he was doing, some of it acoustic jazz, and Wimbish you had again the electronics, fusing that with his bass playing. So it allowed them the space to be who they are as musicians and not create the same thing over and over again.
And Corey Glover had acting chops. Good actor. How
Yeah,
much did he pursue that
does.
after? What was the movie he was in '89?
It was a Saving Private?
No,
No,
well, no.
It was another war
Platoon?
movie. Platoon, yes.
Is that the one?
Yeah. It was Platoon, and he was great, but I don't know what he did in terms of acting after that, because he kind of jumped back into the music world pretty quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, man, talented guy. Will was the one who became the principal instigator of the 2000 reunion because he didn't want to grow old wondering what if. What conversations had to occur before the four members could share a stage again? I mean, were old grievances discussed directly? Did they initially let the music do the talking?
I don't know if old grievances were fully addressed directly. I think they're probably still addressing some of those concerns because a lot of the concerns were about what direction should we go, which songs should we include, when should we do albums. Um, when I talked to Vernon, no, I talked to Corey a few years ago about Stain. He talked about a number of songs that he and Vernon will and that had worked together on that were not going to be included because he didn't like the direction of the sound or he didn't like the lyrics they came up with. And there was a lot of discussions about what to throw out, what to keep in, which I think most bands have. That being said, they were also, I mean, they're very diplomatic, there's very much a democracy in the band. So some of those arguments go on and on and on. Now, I think the band has learned to have the arguments without um, pulling apart as a band, but those arguments are still there in terms of the direction, which songs, how the song should sound. And I think also that when the members were doing their solo work, they became more aware of what they wanted to accomplish within the Living Color when they get back together. So they're still very much strong forceful individuals who have to get together and come up with a major theme for an album, and then with songs to include.
The reunion produced 3 very different albums: Kaleidoscope 2003, The Chair in the Doorway 2009, and Shade in 2017. Kaleidoscope was very much influenced by 9/11, right?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
The song Flying, that gets me.
Yeah, they're Nightmare City. I mean, that's rough. And then, I mean, what was it? The Beatles cover, Tomorrow Never
Yeah.
Knows. It's very ominous. The whole album's very ominous, and it's very dark. And it's really, I mean, 2 dark, maybe 3 dark albums in a row: Stain, Kaleidoscope, The Chair in the Doorway.
Kaleidoscope also has Back in Black on there, right? Yes.
Yes, it does. Wonderful cover of Back in Black.
Great cover. Some standout tracks from The Chair in the Doorway. For you, what stands out from that
my
one?
favorite one is Sacred Ground. I love the feel of that. I think that also touches on the New York piece as well. Then
Gotta love Behind the Sun.
Behind the Sun. That's just fantastic. Yeah, Behind the Sun. And I think, let's see, Bless Those, Little Annie's Prayer, which is mostly a Doug Wimbish composition, are probably my favorites. You do have another cover there. You have Asshole as a hidden track, which
Yeah.
interesting ending to the album. But yeah, I love this is a good album.
Shade, what are your favorites on there? They do a great cover of Robert Johnson's Preaching Blues. Who Shot Ya? The Notorious B.I.G. cover is cool.
Shade may be my favorite Living Color album, actually.
Really?
I think I like it more. I think I like it more than Vivid. I don't know if I like it more than Time's Up. Time's Up and Shade. Because Preaching Blues, which I think the last time I saw them in concert, Vernon started the concert with that wonderful Robert Johnson kind of slide guitar part that Vernon added in with the electric slide guitar. Beautiful. Blackout was another wonderful song that I like. The cover of Inner City Blues, the Marvin Gaye song, standout track. Another cover, because you mentioned Who Shot Ya, which was one of the first singles from the album, the Notorious B.I.G. cover. And then the last song, Two Sides. Great ending of a great record. Great record.
What influences do you hear in Vernon Reid? I hear Clapton. I think Clapton he was a big fan of. There's a great touch to his playing.
Very much Clapton in terms of the Cream era.
Right.
And of course, Vernon did play with Jack Bruce later in Jack's life in a band. What was that called? Spectrum Road with Cindy Blackman
Santana. Yeah. And
yes,
John
drums.
Medeski on keys.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic album. And then, of course, Vernon, I would say a little Robert Fripp there as well. Maybe has some influence on his playing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But on the song I mentioned, the one with Mick on there, Broken Hearts, that guitar swell and
the volume pedal
feel
stuff
that
is
he knows.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
man.
Yeah. And
just goosebumps.
And in terms of Vernon's effects, I mean, that's probably one of the least songs that has one of the least amount of effects, but that's that beautiful volume pedal swells that he does. It's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you believe is Living Colour's greatest contribution to rock music? And what do you hope readers will understand about them after they finish this book?
I think the greatest contribution that Living Colour has is that it's bringing rock back to its roots in terms of some of the blues stuff that you don't often hear on pop radio, yet it's making it modern in terms of giving it that hard rock edge. It's also allowing, especially Blacks, African Americans who don't listen to rock normally, to hear a band which is influenced by their elders, also has an influence on contemporary music. I think that's key to Living Colour's mission. and you have the social commentary aspect of their lyrics. I mean, every album has songs which are about us as people, about where we're going as a country, where we're going as individuals. And the great thing about Living Color is, I mean, I didn't hear the lyrics at first. I didn't. I heard the riffs. I heard the riffs. I heard
Exactly.
that pounding bass and the drums. And then, like you mentioned, Eric, you listen to the songs, you hear these lyrics, and say, wait a minute, there's something deep here. It really is. So I love that. I think other people will love that too.
And what can we expect next from the band? Can we get another album? Are they working on, well, according to Wikipedia, they're working on new material for the follow-up to Shade.
Vernon posted on his social media about 2 years ago. They were working on something. That was 2 years ago. And then he came out with a solo album, which I was not expecting. So I know they're working on stuff. I don't know when the next Living Color album is coming out. Who do Telemetry, because Vernon's solo album came out last year. Who do Telemetry took him about a half a year to finish. And I know he'd been working with Corey, especially Corey, but also with Will and Doug on songs for a new Living Color album. So he keeps saying any day. I don't know, but I think there will be more new material from Living Color. They are touring. They were supposed to tour with Extreme, I believe, this summer, and then that was canceled because Extreme backed out for whatever reason. And then Vernon and Corey have been doing some acoustic shows in New York while Will is on tour. I can't remember, he's on tour with a jazz artist whose drummer got sick. I don't remember who it was. And Doug's always busy. So we'll see more new Living Color music. I'm confident of that.
Man, Extreme and Living Color together. That would have been so cool. I would have been in on that one. Well, the book is out now, Shade of Living Color. It's out through Amazon. You'll also find Preston's other books there on Amazon on Toto and Yes. And people can find you online, where Preston, and also plug the podcast too.
Sure. I'm at Slang of Ages, SLANGOFAGES.com, Slang of Ages. It's not a Def Leppard reference. It's a Steely Dan reference.
I asked you before. I think I had asked you that. I think I asked you 3 years back too, and you said it's a Steely Dan reference. But I'm thinking,
yes,
Def Leppard has an album called Slang. They have the song Rock of Ages, and maybe
I wish I thought of that. So you find me at slangofages.com. I'm also on all social medias under Slang of Ages Podcast. My podcast is about my favorite albums. I've been doing just 10 seasons of that and enjoying every bit of it, Eric.
Oh, it's good, man. Thanks so much. Another great job on this book. And can you tease any other possible book projects in the future?
Okay, so I've been doing an outline and thinking about my next book, which will come out next year, I hope. And I finally want to tackle Steely Dan. I've been putting it off and putting it off. So now I can talk about the Slang of Ages and what it really means. So Steely Dan, I think, will be my next book sometime in 2027.
Cannot wait. All right, 2027. Preston Frazier, thanks so much, man. Good to see you.
Thank you, Eric. You take care.
That's it. It's in the books.